Welcome to today's web conference, Advanced Support for Partners Customer Lockbox. I'd like to turn it over to your first presenter, Michael Pensaroli, National PTS for Microsoft. Michael, you have the floor.
Well, thank you, Kim, and good morning, everybody, and good afternoon, depending on where you are in the U.S. And welcome to today's May call. And we have a couple of topics here for you today. We're going to be talking about a new support that's available for partners called Advanced Support for Partners. And Chris Worth is here from Microsoft. He's a Service Account Manager at Microsoft, and he's going to be taking you through those. And then on the second half of the call, we're going to be talking about Customer Lockbox. And if you've been joining our calls, you know we've been talking quite a bit about the value, enterprise value V5, and we the last couple of months we've been kind of focusing on people-centric security, people-centric compliance, and we talked about advanced e-discovery, and today we're going to be talking about Customer Lockbox. And Anand Menon is a Senior Program Manager at Microsoft, and he's going to take us through that content. And then if you were listening to the Future of SharePoint call yesterday, and if you haven't, I would really recommend you take a look at that. SharePoint is back. It's more than alive and well. Some pretty exciting developments coming out, particularly with some of the advancements in SharePoint 2016 and the scenarios that it brings. And if you stayed on toward the end and you heard this discussion around security, they talked about Customer Lockbox. So we're excited to have Anand here as well to be able to take you through on what that means and the value that that brings to your customers and how you can include that in your conversations. This is our partner community, and we have the vanity URLs here. You obviously are joining our monthly calls, but if you're interested in receiving content around service news and other announcements and events specifically targeted at U.S. partners, you can join our new newsletter there with the AKMS Join Office 365 NL. And then the Yammer group is a great way, and we have over 1,000 partners in there now, and it's been great to kind of see the community grow. We're having a lot of partner-to-partner conversations. That's really fantastic, and we're going to be posting the deck for this call into that Yammer group. So be sure to write that down and join that Yammer group, and then you can read blog posts around service news, and also how partners get information on building their cloud practices at the US blog. So with that, again, welcome. And what I'm going to do is turn this over to our first presenter, Chris Worth. Chris, why don't you go ahead and talk about that new offering? And thanks for being with us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Michael. Welcome to the call today, everyone. Appreciate it. What I'd like to do is talk you through a new support plan that has been built by Microsoft to work with our cloud-focused products around Azure, Office 365, and CRM Online. So today I'm just going to talk a little bit about the plan, what's in the offer, what are the benefits, how can you learn more about it, and really just it's about driving awareness to a new plan that we feel could hopefully help you speed up your support goals that you have, really kind of to help you reduce the cost of support, and to allow Microsoft to kind of be a backstop for you, especially for our cloud solution provider type partners. Microsoft Advanced Support for Partners was just developed and started being rolled out at the first part of this year. It was developed using feedback from over 1,500 partners across the world. It really lands in between the support features that you get from an MPN perspective, also that align and come with your competencies. So it fits in between that and on the high end, Premier support for partners. So as some of you may know, Premier is not just a customer support contract. There is a Premier support plan for partners as well. And so today I'll kind of show how it lands in between both sets of those kind of support plans. Again, I mentioned before, it's Azure, Office 365, and CRM online. The new Dynamics AX is going to be soon onboarded with now that that product has been rolled out, and I think we'll see other products join the mix as well. The other thing to mention is that this is a paid subscription and paid model for support. So I'll talk to a slide towards the end that kind of gets into the pricing. So again, we're kind of here to show that as you are building your cloud practices and you're coming up against customers with complex business needs, that this mid-tier support plan could definitely be a fit for you as you start adding customers and growing your business. We're here to help you kind of continue on with your growth, and we want to do that by providing you kind of a best-in-class service to your customers when you kind of might get up against the fence and need to rely on Microsoft support to kind of help out at that point. There's really three buckets of value that I will speak to as we go through the slides today. Being part of the plan is really about giving you a fast response and problem resolution times for the products mentioned. It's all about making sure you can spend more time focusing on your business and your customers and allowing a more managed support experience and an account manager to kind of offload and help you with some of the support activities that are going to come from having customers that are ramped up with these cloud technologies. So the second bucket speaks to my role as a services account manager. Really think of me as your bat phone, so to speak. When you run up against issues and you don't know where to go to get answers, but you need the answer yesterday, you can reach out to me and I can spend my time and kind of relieve that stress and the time off of your back to go track down answers. So think of it as I'm your support advocate, and it's all about how can I work with you to ensure you're getting what you need to continue to grow your cloud practices. The third bucket is really around getting you access to the right information. So as, again, your services account manager, I'm going to make sure that we have regular calls. We get you set up to be able to take in information as it comes to our team and gets rolled out through the different product lines. And it's making sure that you understand the benefits and how do all of the Microsoft benefits that you receive through your competencies, through the MPN side of the house, how can we maximize them? So I get to kind of work with you to make sure that we do just that. This next slide gets a little deeper into how the offer of advanced support for partners is delivered compared to premier support for partners, as well as the support benefits that you get through the MPN. Whether that's taking advantage of a support case through the MPN that you get by being a silver or gold partner, or being part of Signature Cloud support through your competencies. This slide kind of shows that if you're accessing support through Signature Cloud support that falls under the MPN technical services, your SLAs for SEV-A, SEV-B, and SEV-C support cases are 2, 4, and 8 hours. So if you have an Office 365 customer that's not being able to log in, it's a system down, you're going to create that SEV-A support incident, and Microsoft is telling you, hey, we've got your back, we're going to have an engineer follow up with you in no longer than 2 hours. For advanced support for partners, those SLA times are cut in half. The other thing to mention is that you'll see that the priority in when those support incidents are created, the priority is much higher for advanced support for partners than it is for Signature Cloud support and your regular support cases. So if you can imagine the support queue, when cases are created, our support engineers are going to pick up Premier support cases quicker than advanced support for partners, and they're going to pick up and engage on those cases that are advanced support for partner cases much quicker than a case that's created through Signature Cloud support. So the point is, it's really all about, if you're going to be in a paid support plan, we're going to make sure you get some priority on when those cases are initially responded to, and when those cases are picked up by our engineers. And the idea for you is that hopefully we're going to save you some time because you're prioritized with this plan a little higher than through the MPN technical service types of support scenarios. This slide really talks about all of the different factors and benefits that come as part of the offer. Again, they kind of are divided into the three buckets of value. It's unlimited break-fix support for Azure, Office 365, and CRM Online. Again, you have less than 1 hour response times for Sev-A issues. You do have the ability to open and manage support incidents on behalf of your customers. So another important point that kind of falls in this support kind of process bucket is that when I mentioned that I'm your bat phone, what that means is if you are working on support scenarios and support cases with customers, there probably has been times where you might have issues in getting the engineer to engage with you. Maybe sometimes you feel that the engineer is not going down the right path to get the case resolved. That's when you can lean on your services account manager. We then will be able to go and speak to the engineers, the engineer managers. Maybe it's about getting a fresh set of eyes looking on the case. And maybe it's just shaking the tree to hopefully get things moving again. And so as a services account manager, we're really here to kind of help you speed up your support processes on behalf of those customers that you're working with. That kind of talks to the middle bucket of services account management. I'm helping in my role to kind of help with support issues. But I'm also acting as a resource broker for you. So if you need to go talk to somebody in a different area of Microsoft, you can leverage me as an account manager, really looking over your overall support practice. And so are we utilizing our partner advisory hours that we get from being silver or gold? How to get plugged in and to use those hours with cloud specialists. So in working with your account manager, it would be my role as that account manager to make sure that you're taking advantage of all the Microsoft benefits from a support perspective to utilize and help you growing your business. So it leads to the third kind of bucket of information that you're going to see from a services account manager. They're going to be communicating with you about upcoming releases, outages that might be occurring in the future, different programs that might come along the way that your organizations might be good fits to take part in. We're going to make sure and work with you to get you plugged into all the new content and technical trainings that might come your way. We're also going to have a concept called roadmap webinars, where when new releases and new technologies come out, you'll be the first to be able to see these webinars that speak to those new releases and products. There's a cloud optimization analysis that will be sent to you. So as you onboard customers, this kind of a report will be sent to you each month that will help you look at the data to know where maybe your sales team should focus. So which customers are about to lapse, which ones are looking to renew out 6 months from now. So it'll give you some data, even from an Azure consumption perspective. You'll be able to see who's consuming the most from an Azure perspective. So it's some data that you'll get every month to kind of help you drive your business forward and knowing where you should focus. The final topic I'll talk to as far as a benefit is what we call a concept called Cloud Consult. And this concept is similar to using advisory hours to where you're going to be plugged in and working with a partner technology consultant or a cloud specialist. Again, advisory hours in this Cloud Consult, they're not known, it's not break-fix support, it's more guidance and, hey, how do I do this, or how-to scenarios, if you want to put it. But a Cloud Consult is being set up to where you get roughly one of these a month, and I think they're trying to kind of put the limit at around 5 hours. But it's a one-on-one remote consultation with a specialist, and it deals specifically when you have customer deployment plans in place or a migration plan, and you just want to make sure and have Microsoft look at it, helping you cross the T's and dot the I's. And so there's a range of different scenarios. We're open to taking a lot of these right now to build out a catalog, and so the idea is it's a place where you can come really to have someone take a look at what your deployment plan is to make sure that you're on the right track before you kind of take that plan back to the customer. Here's a slide that talks about price. So you can decide to pay all up front. It's a $15,000 a year plan. Or you can choose to be billed monthly to help from an upfront capital perspective where you're not dishing out so much money all up front. Monthly, it's $12.50 US dollars. Then there's some add-on services depending on how many of the benefits that you're using or how much of your account management time you're utilizing from your SAM. So what they're trying to do with this is hopefully come up with a price point. We obviously understand it's not probably the best price point for all partners, but hopefully as you kind of grow your businesses, you'll start to realize the time that can be saved by having a support liaison work on your behalf to save you time not having to deal with some of these support issues and get you focused on growing your businesses. This is how you can get started. You can go to aka.ms/ASFP to obviously learn more about the program, what I've talked about today, but to actually engage and to move forward and learn about how to engage and start getting lit up to be part of the new ASFP plan. If you have questions, you can use the email asfpinquiries@microsoft.com. And if you'd like to stay up to date, you can always join our conversation by attending and signing up for our field community Yammer site. That's really all I have today in talking to you about the program. I'm willing to take some questions. Michael, if there are any there, please let me know.
Well, thank you, Chris. Yeah, there's a couple of questions. The first one is there an email alias for the service AMs? Does that make sense?
Yes, so great question. One that I probably didn't speak to in the slide. So with regards to the different levels of support, obviously from an MPN perspective, support cases, and if you're utilizing Signature Cloud support, you do not get an assigned account manager. With Premier Support, you do as well. You get a TAM, a technical account manager, and with a services account manager that falls under ASFP, the way that it will work is that you'll be assigned a direct services account manager, but then there is an alias that you will be able to utilize, and so the way I describe it is if your company is maybe based in the US, but you have maybe a location over in EMEA or in Australia, if your services account manager that's assigned to you is asleep at night, and you have different folks that want to engage a services account manager in EMEA, you would then be able to email that alias and have a SAM pick up that scenario and kind of run with it while we're sleeping over here in the U.S. So it is what they're calling a pooled account manager, but it's really only pooled in the sense that if you need to engage a SAM in a different part of the world than where you're purchasing the plan out of. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, sounds good. And then we had a question from Michael, and I don't know if you can speak to this, but he's wondering, how does premium compare to the CSP support provided by Tier 1 distributors like Ingram?
Yes, so great question. The one thing I will mention is that this support plan was really built with CSP partners in mind. And so it comes down to, from a Tier 1 perspective, I'll give this a shot, and hopefully I'm hitting where you need me to go with this. But in a Tier 1 CSP model, obviously that first line of support is falling on you as the partner. And so where this plays in well is that if you're part of ASFP, you would have kind of the confidence to know that you've got a backstop. If you ran into issues trying to be that first level of support, then you would have the ability to kind of reach out to Microsoft as your backstop to kind of help carry on with that support case. In a Tier 2 model, the Ingrams of the world are your first line of support, and so it could happen in a couple different scenarios. But if you're part of ASFP, really it would be up to Ingram to be part of a Premier Support Plan or ASFP, because then they would have Microsoft as kind of the backstop to help them from a support perspective. So you really are supposed to be reaching out and utilizing that first tier of support through Ingram. Obviously, if there's questions and scenarios that fall outside of that, you could definitely email me directly, and I could have a conversation with you. My email alias is cwirth@microsoft.com. But in a general sense, we're kind of providing the backstop for our Tier 1 CSP partners. And then ASFP and Premier support for partners could also be a backstop in the Tier 2 model, and it would be the backstop for those disties, the Ingram Micros of the world. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, thanks for that that discussion. That was good. I know a lot of partners are interested in that. And just one final question from Dean, and he's wondering if this includes any support for software in the Enterprise Mobility Suite.
Yes, EMS falls online. Power BI are also included in this offer.
Great, good to hear. All right, Chris. Well, listen, I really appreciate you coming on to talk about this new offering. And as we mentioned kind of earlier, we put in the chat window. You'll be able to download the slides from today's call on our Yammer group, and I posted the URL there, and I'll be able to get those out a little bit later today. So thanks for joining us, Chris. Anything else from you? Are we good?
No, we're good. Thanks for having me.
Great. Really appreciate you joining today. Okay, so we're going to switch gears now to Customer Lockbox, and so we're excited to talk about this. And as I mentioned earlier in the call, we have Anand Menon with us, and he's a senior program manager at Microsoft. And if you were watching the Future of SharePoint yesterday and you stayed on to the end, Customer Lockbox was mentioned and front and center in that conversation, so that's great. And we have Anand here to talk about what Customer Lockbox is and helping you with your customers as you kind of take them through the E5 value, and can really help with those conversations where customers may have been reluctant to go to the cloud, and really kind of help them feel more comfortable about that. So Anand, I want to turn it over to you, and I really appreciate you being here with us today.
Problem. Thank you, Michael. Hello, everyone. My name is Anand Menon. I am part of the Office 365 Access Protection team. My team owns all the technologies, tools, and processes that provide Microsoft engineer access to the Office 365 data center. One of such technologies that our team is responsible for is called the Customer Lockbox, which is what I'm going to cover in detail in this session. Customer Lockbox is a feature that is shipped with the E5 SKU, as Michael mentioned before. This is a feature where our customers are in control of who from Microsoft gets access to customers' content. So it's a transparency and a privacy feature from Microsoft on the Office 365 platform. But before I jump into the Customer Lockbox feature, I want to talk a little bit about the rigor that we apply for any data center access. This is not just customer data, but any data center access by Microsoft. What rigor do we apply, and what are some of the bars that the engineers need to meet before they can even get access to the data center? So let me walk you quickly through that, and then we will jump right into Lockbox and Customer Lockbox. So I want to quickly talk about some of the cloud operation principles that we are rooted on, especially when it comes to access control. The two main principles that we abide by are the humans govern the service and code operates the service, which means that we want human operators to be out of the system. We do not want anybody manually logging into the data center or doing things in the data center. We want to automate as much tasks as possible so that we can eliminate the need for humans to get into the data center. So that's the first one. And the second is, like, we know that not everything can be automated. There are cases where a human would have to log into the data center to maybe troubleshoot some tasks or get a server that is really in a bad state to bring it back up, or some of those tasks. But when that kind of access is needed, we want to make sure that the engineer gets only just in time and just enough access so he or she can get the work done and just that work done and get out of it. And we want to make sure that the engineers have at no point of time have access to the customer content for running any of the service operations. So these are the two main principles that especially our team, the access control team, is rooted on. So everything that we do is kind of keyed off of these two principles. Just to put that principle, the human govern and code operate, that principle into action. Here is the graph that kind of shows that. So if you look at this graph, the red line kind of shows how our users have grown exponentially. From 2013 to 2016, how our users have grown exponentially. Our number of alerts as the machines go up, it has kind of in a patchy thing. Sometimes you have more machines going into maintenance state, which raises more alerts and things like that. But the interesting point here is that what you see on the bottom, which is the number of operators. So even when our users have grown exponentially, we were able to sustain maintaining the service with almost the same amount of operators. And we were able to do this by automating everything that we can. So this is back to the principle that I was talking about. We do not want humans to be operating on our data center if possible. So if we see a pattern, if we see anything that can be repeated, we try to automate that task. And as I said, when not everything can be automated, there are instances where humans will have to get into the data center, and in those circumstances, we will, everything goes through the technology and process called Lockbox. Office 365 operates on this principle of zero standing access, which means that by default, nobody has any standing access to the data center. So anytime anybody needs to, any Microsoft engineer needs to access the data center, they will have to go through a process called as elevation. And Lockbox is the system that provides the engineer access to the data center. I'll not go into each of these components in the Lockbox, but I have in the later slides, I'll show you how the flow flow is, the lockbox flow is. And each of those access is just in time and just enough access, so they get only access to what they need to do and nothing more, nothing less. Let me move on. So when we talk about Office 365, the first thing that comes to mind is scale, right? We have millions of users, we have data centers in multiple regions, we have thousands of servers. All those servers needs to be up to date when it comes to patching, antivirus, and all that. And on top of this, all the servers needs to be highly reliable. Our availability numbers were like 99.99 in the last quarter. So how do we do that? How do we operate at this kind of scale? And the way we do it is by automating everything that we can. As I mentioned before, if we see a pattern, if we see an instance happen twice, the first thing that the engineer will think of is like, how can we write a script or a workflow which can be automated? So next time when there is a similar instance happening, the system can automatically recover or run the script without a human involvement. So this is a picture just to put what I was mentioning into perspective. So if you see that big yellow circle, that is consider that as all the data center operations that are happening, automated and unautomated. That little circle, the white circle that you see, those kind of denote the extremely few operations that require humans to get into the data center. So out of that big circle, which represents everything, every operation that happens, that little white circle denotes things that need human interaction. And even within that, a small percentage of operations that need human interactions, very few requires access to customer content. I couldn't put that circle to be smaller than that because otherwise it won't be visible. But it is a very, very small percentage of operations that require access to customer content. And in most of those cases, when a Microsoft engineer needs to access customer content, those are initiated by the customer because customer has run into an issue with a mailbox or something that they cannot troubleshoot, and they have escalated that issue to Microsoft, and the Microsoft engineer to troubleshoot that issue now needs to run a commandlet or a script that potentially provides access to customer data. So most of those cases are that little dot that represents there. So that's the state of data center and how operations are today. And let's get into the access control piece of things. Like as I mentioned before, not everything can be automated. There are cases where an engineer needs to get into the data center. If something really bad happened. So when an engineer needs to access the data center, we look at access control from three different aspects. The first one is isolation. The second one is the personnel, the people who are accessing the data center themselves. And the third one is the technologies that are behind, which provides access to the data center. So when we talk about isolation, I talked about minimizing the human touch. We want to minimize the human interactions with the data center wherever possible. And we do that by automation. The second one under isolation is customer content is isolated from operations. So when an engineer needs to do a day-to-day operations, a service operations in the data center, they can do that, and the customer content is completely isolated from that operation, which means that they have no access to customer content when they are, say, rebooting a server, or when they need to go run a deployment tasks, or any of those regular service operations. When they do it, they have no access to the customer content. And the way we do that is in a couple of ways. One is like RBAC, which is role-based access control. So all the commandlets and scripts that provide access to customer content is kind of isolated into a role, a high critical role, which we call as access to customer content. And so if anybody needs to run a commandlet that is, say, data center operations or reboot server, they don't have access to the customer content commandlets because they are completely in a separate role. So there is isolation from a commandlet and a script perspective. We also have something called as breach boundaries. So the servers that contain customer content, they are in a complete isolated breach boundary than the other servers that are needed to maintain the system. So there is isolation there as well. So we talk about personnel or the people who are accessing the data center from Microsoft. Microsoft operates on a DevOps model, which means that the engineering team are responsible for the health of the service. For example, I go on call once in every 3 months, and if there is an issue that the customer is facing related to access control, I'll be the one that will be called in to look into that. Before even I go on call, there are some prerequisites that I need to fulfill. And the first thing is that I need to go through a background check, and I need to get clearances if I need to elevate to any of the high critical roles that provide access to customer content. Also, I need to get a specific account provision for Office 365. So by default, I don't have that account. I need to request for that specific account. And once I have that account provision, then only I can start the process of accessing the data center for troubleshooting purpose when I go on call. So background check, clearances, and once I have my background check and my clearances and my training done, and I got my account provisioned, for me to even get to the data center, I need to provide at least two factors of authentication. The first factor is my smart card or my phone factor, and the second one is having my Office 365 account in good standing. And all those accounts are tied back to the HR system. So if tomorrow the employee leaves or if the employee changes team, there is workflows that triggers which will take the access, which will remove the access. So there is a tighter integration there. So once I provide my multi-factor auth, I get into the data center, and when I get into the data center, as I mentioned before, Office 365 operates on this zero standing elevated privileges model, which means that none of the Microsoft engineers have any elevated access into the data center. So what I'll have to do is I'll have to request for higher privileges. And once I request for higher privileges, that request will go through multiple levels of approval, which is one of which is my manager. And once my manager approves it, that's when I can get elevated access privileges into the data center. So for each of those elevations, we create the system creates a just-in-time account. So you have your Office 365 account, and based off of your Office 365 account, for each of those elevations, there is a just-in-time account that is created, which has a complex machine-generated password, one-time password also attached with that. And each of those higher elevations, they provide just enough access. So we have multiple roles, and based on the tasks that the engineer needs to perform, there is just enough access that is given to the engineer. For example, if a user needs to restart a service, we have a script called as request restart service. So the engineer will go request restart service script, and it will go to his manager for approval. And once the manager approves it, the engineer will get to run that script. So it's just in time, just enough access. And then all the requests are time bound, which means that the request expires after a period of time. For the higher critical roles like access to customer content, the maximum duration that we allow is 4 hours. So you can request only up to 4 hours, after which the request will automatically expire. And then all the interactions by Microsoft engineer within the data center is logged, and then we run audits every month where we roll up all these numbers and we report up to our CVP in a monthly MSR. So all that is logged and audited. So this is some of the rigor that we apply. This is not just customer content, but any access to the data center. We go through our engineers and our personnel will have to go through this rigor. And the technology that is behind this enforcing is Lockbox. So let's look at Lockbox. So as I mentioned before, my Office 365 operates on this principle of zero standing admin privileges. Again, which means that nobody at Microsoft has any standing access to the Office 365 data center. So if a Microsoft engineer needs to access the data center for troubleshooting any customer issues or any service issues, the first thing that they will have to do is to submit a request to the Lockbox system for approval. So a Microsoft engineer submits a request, the Lockbox system reviews the request. It has a complex rules engine. It evaluates who has requested it, what has he requested, and then it determines who the requester's manager is. And then the Lockbox system will forward that request to a Microsoft manager. And the Microsoft manager will have an opportunity to review the request. There are parameters that we enforce like reason and duration, and the reason is mandatory because each of the requests should have a valid reason as to why the access is needed, which helps the managers review and approve or reject accordingly. So once the Microsoft manager reviews the requests and approves the request, that's when a Microsoft engineer will get access to whatever resources he has requested for. So this is the Lockbox system. This applies to all the access in the data center, whether it is customer content or not, whether it is for regular service operation. This Lockbox applies to everything, everything in the Office 365 data center. But what we wanted to do was kind of take this to the next level, where we want to put customers in control of who gets access to their content. So let's take an example. So there is a customer who has run into an issue, and he has contacted Microsoft support team. And the support team looked at the request and figured out that this request needs to troubleshoot this request. The engineer needs to run some command that has the potential of getting customer content. So what happens is the engineer will request for an access. The access, just like how I was showing before, it goes to the Lockbox system. The Lockbox system runs a bunch of rules, and the request goes to the Microsoft manager. Before Customer Lockbox, once the Microsoft manager approves it, the Microsoft engineer would have gotten access. But with Customer Lockbox, if the customer is opted into the Customer Lockbox feature, what happens is after the Microsoft manager my manager approves the request now goes to the customer, and the customer will have an opportunity to weigh in on the request, and they can either approve or reject the request. And if the customer approves the request, then only Microsoft engineer will have access to troubleshoot that issue. So that's kind of Customer Lockbox flow. As you can see here, the customer is in full control of who gets access, who from Microsoft get access to their content. So let's dive a little bit more deep into the Customer Lockbox flow, and I'll show you what actually happens behind the scenes. So let's take an example. We have a customer who's having an issue with, say, a user's mailbox. There is a user's mailbox that he's not able to, or he has hard deleted it, or he's not able to recover, or he's having an issue. So the customer reaches out to a Microsoft support team. The support team looks at the request and figures out that to troubleshoot this, they will have to run a specific commandlet which potentially provides access to customer content. So what happens is they create the Microsoft engineer creates a service request. And the service request number is shared with the customer, and this is kind of the reference point for the customer. So if they have any questions in the future regarding the access, they can always refer back to the service request number, and it should have all the details regarding the issue. So So this is a screenshot of how a Microsoft engineer gets access to the data center. So we use remote PowerShell for most of our actions to get to the data center. As I mentioned before, by default, the engineer has no access to the data center. If he goes and runs this new mailbox restore request commandlet, which provides access to customer content, he gets an error saying that he cannot access that commandlet because by default he has no standing access. So what the Microsoft engineer does is he raises a request to the Lockbox system. So here is the request. If it's a customer data request, so tenant parameter is mandatory. So the engineer will have to specify which tenant is he connecting to. The duration is mandatory. Service request number is mandatory if it's access to customer content, because this is the request number that the customer will have access to. So all the details can be referred back if needed. A request is generated for the engineer. He gets an email saying that the request is now pending approval. The Lockbox system sends the request now to a Microsoft manager. Manager will log into an internal portal called OSP, which is Office Service Portal, and he will have an opportunity to review the request, and he can approve or reject the request. If the request is approved, the engineer will get an email back that says the request has been approved. Because this customer is opted into Customer Lockbox, just getting manager's approval is not enough, and the request has now been sent to a tenant admin from the customer side for approval. So let's look at the flow from the customer side. So this is rest of the flow is mainly from the customer side. So customer tenant admin gets an email. He sees that it's a request from Lockbox, and it says that a Customer Lockbox request is pending approval. And let me go back. It has all the details. It has all the details that the tenant admin needs to know for approving or denying the request. It has a service request number. This is the number that the customer was given when he called in Microsoft support. And the tenant admin now logs into the Office 365 portal. He can go into the admin center. And once you are in the admin center, right in the dashboard, you will see a Customer Lockbox request, and there is a reference number and the details regarding that. And the customer can now approve or deny the request. And once the customer approves the request, that's when a Microsoft engineer will have access. And engineer now will get an email saying that account has been successfully provisioned. And when he comes back and tries to log back into the RPS shell and looks for the commandlet, he now has access to that commandlet. He can go run the commandlet, restore the issue that the customer was having. And and remember the first, if you remember the first request that I showed had a duration of 30 minutes. So after 30 minutes is elapsed, the system will go and revoke access for the user. And if he comes back after 30 minutes and tries to log in, he will get an access denied, because again, by default we have zero standing access to the data center. And then once the issue is fixed, the access is revoked, the service request number is closed, and that kind of completes the Customer Lockbox cycle. I'll have some time in the end for questions, but just quickly on the roadmap. As of today, we have Exchange, SharePoint, and OneDrive for Business all covered as part of the Customer Lockbox feature. Right now, the Customer Lockbox emails go to the tenant admins for approval. But we are working on creating a new role called as Customer Lockbox Approvers, where you will be able to add non-tenant admins to that role, and they will be able to approve these requests. The idea here is like some companies have compliance requirements where access to customer content needs to be reviewed by, say, their legal team. So they don't have to make their legal team and tenant admins once we have this role, because all they need to do is to now add the legal person to the Customer Lockbox approver roles, and they should be able to review and approve the request once this role is in place. Now we are also working on some notification enhancements where we are thinking of providing like a SMS messaging, or adding this as part of the O365 admin app itself, so you can get real-time notifications on your phone when such an access happens. And the last thing, which is probably a longer-term vision and goal, is we want to provide the lockbox system that we have within the data center to the tenants. The idea here is that we do not, just like how we operate the data center with zero standing admin privileges for our Microsoft engineers, we want our customers to be able to manage their tenancy without having standing tenant admins in their system. It could be tenant admins, it could be any admins within their system with higher privileges. We want the same goodness that we apply in the Office 365 data center, and give that goodness back to the customers for managing their tenant admins or roles within their tenancy as well. So these are some of the high-level roadmap that we are going after. With that, I think that's all I had. We have probably like 4 more minutes for any questions. Michael, if there are any questions, I'll be happy to take that now.
Well, thanks, Anand. There were a few questions that came up that I was able to knock down, and but there are no questions. If any come in after, we will have their email address so that we can follow up with them directly. But for now, I think we're good. I really appreciate the update today. Many times our partners are, they'll see, some of these features at a very high level, or maybe perhaps at a briefing. But this was outstanding to be able to really drill in and see how the process actually works. So very helpful for them in their conversations with their customers. So I really appreciate you taking the time today.
Not a problem.
Well, great. And so this content will be, I will upload the deck to our Yammer site after the call, and you can always review this recording on the same place that you registered, and I will also post the recording to our YouTube channel, which a lot of people like to consume this offline, so we do get quite a bit of views, and you can see the entire series on that YouTube channel, which I will also post when the recording is available. So let's see, I just wanted to, and before closing, we have just a couple of minutes, and before I turn it back over to Kim, I just wanted to get the content back presented, because there was a slide in the deck that I wanted to show, just to highlight a training event that is coming up. And that is some directions training. So I have a number of partners out there who you need to pass your certification exams as part of the cloud productivity competency. And I wanted to highlight this training. It actually is Monday, so short notice. It's not the first time we've talked about it, but I just wanted to get it in there to let you know that if you need to pass those exams and you're looking for an accelerated way to pass that 346 and 347, this is a highly subsidized virtual event. You don't have to go to Chicago. It's a live instructor, but you can take it online, and so it follows the MOC curriculum. It's normally $3,300, and Microsoft is subsidizing at $299. So you can sign up for that. I will broadcast that sign-up URL, but of course this is going to be in that deck that I would post if you're interested in taking that training. And just another event, this is not our Office 365 community, but the Collab Summit is actually coming up next week on the 10th through the 12th. It's really a community event, so there's a lot of community folks involved, but we will have some Microsoft employees, including Bill Baer and Jeremy Thake and Mark Cashman and Sonia Koptiev. They will be keynoting, and so there's going to be a lot of information, particularly around the release of SharePoint 2016. So if you're looking for some more detail on that, please be sure to check out this and see if it's worthwhile once you take a look at the agenda, even maybe tune in for the keynote, and I will put that in the window as well, or you can go get the deck. All right, Kim, I'm going to turn it back over to you, and we got the call.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Ladies and gentlemen, your feedback is important. We hope that you found today's information helpful. Please take a few minutes and let us know by completing a short survey. Please click on the messages button to find the link to the survey. And you can access the web conference recording via a link that will be delivered within 72 hours post-conference. And I'd like to extend a big thank you to our presenters, Michael, Chris, and Anand. This concludes today's web conference. You may now disconnect.